Colton.
Hello.
Hi, thank you. Give me just a second. I'm just hanging up on this other call.
Oh, okay, perfectly fine.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. Great to see you. Okay. See you soon. Bye. Bye. Yeah. Hi, Colton. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I know I
So,
talked.
so you're just for some introduction. You're a high school student. Where again? Where's your?
So I go to Wheat Ridge High School.
Uh huh.
And I'm a senior there, and then I did early admission for CU Boulder, and then I got in as a biomedical engineer student.
Oh, that's great. Do you know if that was like, is that with like Corey New? I think he's like, isn't he in charge of the biomedical program?
I'm not sure yet. I'm still finishing the housing application, and it's you know how you have to go through like the buff portal before you can sign up for classes and all that. So I'm in the process of doing all that, but my in order to graduate, we have to do a capstone project for our senior year, as part of like our English credit, and
Yeah,
so I did mine on green chemistry, and so then that's what I've kind of been preoccupied with. Right now.
yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's great. Well, yeah, and so whatever you want to talk about, I'd be happy to try to do that now. If we need to, if we find that the phone is limiting us, I'd be happy to send you real fast a Zoom invite, and we can jump on Zoom if you have those capabilities right now. I don't know where you're located, but I'm just in my office at the university right now, so I could do that.
Okay. I think right now I'm at my computer, and my computer isn't able to do like a camera, so I think a
Okay.
call will work. I just need it for like a transcript on my portfolio, so a call is perfectly fine.
Okay. Sure.
And then I won't take up too much of your time. I really only have a couple questions, and then I want you. I would like you to add on to what Professor Martyr said, because I asked Martyr, um, basically I asked him like, how do you think green chemistry could be applied in developing countries? And so actually I was surprised at his answer because he said that it would be more optimal to implement it there because they don't have an existing like energy
Hmm.
strategy already. And so I was curious, do you agree? Do you have anything to add on or?
Well, what I would tell you is that there, like some of the green chemistry. I don't know if you looked into the 12 principles of green chemistry, but certainly there's resource savings in there as some of the 12 principles of green chemistry. And I will tell you that countries, developing countries, they're already doing a lot more, for example, to reuse solvents and so forth because they don't have the financial resources to be buying, lots of these items. So I mean, yeah, I agree with what Seth is saying. In fact, I was on a webinar once for nature, and one of the speakers, I could find her name for you, but she was from, I think, Brazil, and she was kind of because I've been trying to encourage green chemistry here, and one of the things that we do is solvent recovery, distillation, and reuse, and we've been able to do that for acetone. And so, but what she was saying when we were on this webinar together, that was recorded by the Journal of Nature, is she was. And I don't think it got, I'm not sure it got captured by the recording. It might have been like in our prep call or something like that. But what she was saying is like, it's great that you're working on those things. We're already doing those things because we have to. We don't.
Mm,
We are financially constrained, and we need to make the most of everything. And so, yeah, like I manage a Green Labs program here, and a lot of the best practices that we're encouraging with the scientists. Here at a large research institution, and they're also being encouraged, of course, encouraged with research institutions across the United States and even the world. Like, Europe is Green Labs is very prevalent. But the thing I'll say is like a lot of the best practices that we're promoting for efficiency, they're already being implemented. It's the well-funded institutions where there's a real need to see more implementation of this. If you have underfunded institutions, or you're in a country where funding for research is not, there isn't much, you're already going to be implementing a lot of these efficiency practices because you have to.
Yeah, yeah. I noticed cuz I did my research paper because we had to do one on the 12 principles, and so
Hmm.
I read a lot about efficiency, atom economy, all that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um in fact, that actually leads into my next question, which
Sure.
isn't really a question on like green chemistry exactly, but during my presentation, so we do a mock presentation, and so I have to do mine in front of my class, and so I know they're not gonna really have the same like level of interest that I will have in the topic, and so I was curious if you had any recommendations like on how I could almost like spin the topic to make it seem more engaging for people that like aren't as, because the 12 principles I feel like are harder to dive into and like
Yeah.
graze.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me think about that for a minute. So you want to know your topic. How can you make it exciting to hear about for your classmates? Is that what you're trying to ask me?
Yeah, yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like a 10 to 12 minute presentation. And so obviously on my end, I'll make the presentation look good. I'll like have
Mm-hmm.
confidence when speaking, but it's really just
Mm-hmm.
like the like articulation of my ideas where I don't want it to sound like I'm just rambling and rambling, where they can actually comprehend it and understand and be like, wow, that does make sense.
What about like this one? Uh, I mean, I don't know if this is like, it's hard for me to know your classmates and what they're interested in, but one of the green chemistry things that we're promoting right now, that we're going to be pushing out this summer with some of our laboratories in biological studies for green chemistry, is that there's these common biotechniques that are used to, common bio procedures that use methanol, and there's no need for them to use methanol. They just use methanol because that's what's always been done. And if you go into like procedures for things, we could be using ethanol instead. Now, ethanol, as you know, is something that's drinking alcohol, right? So
Hmm.
that is something that in limited quantities humans can actually consume and they will not, die or whatever. But you cannot say that for methanol. Methanol is toxic, and you want to be careful with it, even getting it on your skin. I mean, it probably wouldn't do too much, but really, you don't want to get that on your skin. So you have to be really careful with ethanol, since it's something that's completely, well, that can be consumed and processed by the human body, because it's in our beer, our wine, our like, I don't know, it's a green chemistry substitute for the methanol, and it's definitely something that can be done. So that is an example of a green chemistry replacement, basically, for toxicity. You're replacing something that is toxic with something that's not toxic, and using. And I don't know if that would engage your classmates a little more, because it brings up, of course, alcoholic beverages. But I don't know. What do you think about that? I mean, I don't know if that's the direction you want to go. My daughters won't even. They're juniors. I have twins, and they won't even. They don't want to be. They're like, if I have a beer or something, and I'm in my 50s, they're like, "Mom, you're drinking a beer." I'm like, "I know, but it's just one." They're like really anti-drinking, so, which is good. I'm really glad they are, because
Yeah.
I don't want them to get involved in that. But what do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea. I think I can implement that well.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, we've created this flyer. It was actually created by a student in our environmental board, which I was actually going to mention to you, since you're coming to see you Boulder next year. And if you're interested in getting involved in sustainability, the Environmental Center is one of the oldest centers in the entire nation. That's where I work. And I wanted to, it was started by students on Earth Day in 1970, and it's still going. We're more than 50 years old.
Wow.
And we still have a governing board that's students. And I just wanted to let you know, if you're interested next year when you come here, you could find out through the Environmental Center about the student led, basically, environmental board that governs ourselves and run. Like, I was just, prior to this meeting I had that ran over, was with the e-board chair and a student that's a voting member on that board. But if you're very interested in like green chemistry and sustainability in general, I highly recommend that. It's a wonderful opportunity. But anyways, that one of the students that was in this room created a flyer on that topic, which I could probably like send a screenshot of. But it talks about this. Practice green chemistry. It says reduce toxicity by choosing ethanol instead of methanol for your biolab procedures. And then we talk about two biolab procedures. It's a protein gel staining and destaining, and he's got a very attractive flyer here, and we highlight how one lab has been using ethanol instead of methanol for more than 5 years, and how the literature from a company that reports on the process used for Western blots, which is a whole nother procedure, but it says that you can use ethanol instead of methanol in the transfer buffer. So maybe a little more sciencey than you were looking for, but the flyer is really attractive. It's got a picture of a protein gel. It looks really cool, and I could share that with you. I could ask the student first, make sure, but I'm sure he's okay. But yeah, that advertises the Green Labs program, and this is what I'm talking about: using ethanol instead of methanol. And that's, of course, ethanol is drinking alcohol. Methanol has one less carbon in it, and it's very, yeah, like you probably have heard of people dying when they're drinking alcohol that's given free at resorts in other countries, or tourists and everything, and the resort offers free alcohol, and so what happens is sometimes it's tainted with methanol, and they die from
Mm.
drinking it. I don't know if you've heard that. Have you heard that about that happening?
I've heard about like a little bit about like the like volatility of the variance in like all the alcohols, but I haven't heard stories like that
Yeah.
exactly.
All we have to do is, like, let me go to my computer here, right? Methanol poisoning um, of um, resort tourists. It's accidental. It's not. They're not trying to do it, but the alcohol they're serving as a drink, like the one that was really big, that was recent, is that 7 foreign tourists hospitalized in Fiji after suspected alcohol poisoning. They were killed by methanol. It was the case, which local media said involved one American, is similar to the one in Laos last month. Oh yeah, Laos actually was the one that really made the news, in which 6 foreign tourists died after they drank alcohol tainted with methanol. So this is somehow you could make it more interesting to your students, because you can use this to demonstrate the toxicity of methanol. Methanol is something you can't drink; you will die. Whereas ethanol is something you can drink, and that alone shows how one is less toxic than the other. And that is green chemistry. Reducing toxicity is it's somewhere in one of the principles of green chemistry, to reduce toxicity. So you could highlight that. But I think this would make it really interesting, and also raise awareness with your classmates that if they ever do travel and they go to these resorts where they offer free alcohol in these developing countries, to the point you're bringing up developing countries, so it feeds into your first question. They should not be drinking that free alcohol. It needs to come from a company that's regulated. Those things that those resorts are getting sometimes is completely unregulated, and then that's how the tourists die. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that on my presentation. I think that'll help a lot. That was one of my struggles. I just couldn't really find how to make it so engaging. Like I even shared my
Hmm.
like presentation with my close friends, and they were like, "I'm gonna be honest with you, it's a little boring." And so then I was like,
Yeah.
"Shoot." but I think that'll definitely help.
Yeah, I'll send you by email since you emailed me before. I have your email. I'll send you some resources that can hopefully jazz up your presentation, and they'll be able to relate more to it. It's not just science, actually able to relate to it because you can see how this green chemistry is something that affects them as well as people just living life.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, and hopefully it educates them. I was thinking about one time, my husband's from Mexico. That's where my last name comes from. Even though if you were to see me, I don't look Mexican. But we were down in the Cancun area visiting his family. We all met over there, and actually, I did this, and I was telling my daughters about this green chemistry effort that I'm doing, and I'm like, you know what? I drank one of those free drinks at the resort this past Christmas, and I was like, I should have never done that. That's probably unregulated alcohol and dangerous. And yeah, I'm like, I will never do that again, ever. I mean, there's lots of great, obviously, there's very reliable resources of alcohol coming out of Mexico too. But you can, these free things where they just make up the cup and you don't even know the company that's being poured into the drink. I mean, it actually is a dangerous thing. Mhm.
Yeah, just paper cup, just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I will never do that again. I will always pay for my drink. But I hardly ever drink. I have 5 drinks a year. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not there yet. I'm only 17, so
yeah. Well, that's the
I'm
age of my
staying.
daughters. My daughters are at Boulder High, just down the road. Um, that's like right next to the university here. It's like 3 blocks away. You can see it from their campus.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Anyway, yeah. So, do you have more questions I can help you with? This
Not
has been
really.
fun.
That was it. Unless you want me to ask more, I have like one more question. If you want to
Yeah,
keep talking,
yeah.
it was really just so like compared to just like basic like combustion energy, do you
Hmm.
think like green chemistry is more ethical to do in terms of like protecting the environment, protecting the people, or do you
Oh
think?
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, there's such injustices connected to not practicing green chemistry because well, for the example, if you one of the things that one of the previous employees that worked for me here, and now she's over at my green lab, which is a nonprofit working on sustainability with scientists around the world. But anyway, she was really interested in social sustainability or social justice piece, and so one of the efforts that she did in collaboration with another university and one of my supervisors within the center who was very big into social justice or environmental justice. And what they looked at is what happens to our hazardous waste. You're in high school right now. To be honest, high schools are incredibly green in their laboratories and what chemicals they're using. They tend not to use chemicals in the teaching labs there in your high school that it would be poisonous to the students working with them, or a real concern. But when you get to the university environment, there's so much original research happening, that there definitely is generation of hazardous waste here, and it's real hazardous waste. Now we should be trying to minimize that through more green chemistry efforts, and I really hope that that gets embraced more with time. That's like this effort that I was just talking to you about, the ethanol instead of the methanol. If I was to go around to the labs on this campus right now, most will be using methanol. They will not be using ethanol, even though ethanol should work just fine and is not toxic. So, anyways, so the what I'm saying is she did a study on, okay, well, obviously we have to dispose of this waste. What is happening to this waste on our campuses when it leaves this campus? First of all, environmental health and safety, you have to pick it up. But where is it going? There's basically specialized landfills is one of the places where some of it's going, and other places where it's going is like flash points. Especially like the solvents, they are very flammable and they can work as a flashpoint, for example, at a cement factory. So some things get get burned in those flashes if it's not, if it meets regulations for allowing that to happen, if it's not got probably very toxic things in it. But anyways, the other has to go to a landfill, and if you look at who lives near those landfills, of course, those landfills are near disadvantaged populations, and so there's a whole bunch of connections between environmental injustice and lack of using green chemistry, basically. And a green chemistry, I don't know if you got in your studies, it's actually a fairly young field. The book that established the 12 principles of green chemistry, it didn't come out until the 1990s by Paul Anastas and John Warner. So they're the two founders of the green chemistry 12 principles and the green chemistry movement, in my opinion. And so they are. So it's a fairly young field. So there's a lot of growth of it to really get into chemistry, and not just chemistry. I mean, green chemistry touches biological labs, medical labs. I mean, you could just go on engineering labs. You can really, all these different laboratories and research is going on. It touches so many different fields. But of course, chemistry tends to be where the most toxic chemicals are in use. But it's not always. It doesn't mean that there aren't other places in other laboratory departments where toxic chemicals are being used. But of course, there's other things. Like, did you go on our webpage? I have a whole environmental justice
Um, not
webpage.
really. No, I just I
Okay.
went on like your page on Sea Boulder and just looked at some of your titles, and then that was really it.
Okay, yeah. So if we go to the Green Labs page on mine, there is a social justice section that we have up, and it says, basically it has on there. Let me see. If you went to um, present or historical injustices, maybe it's under there. So if you go down, it talks about Cancer Alley, for example, and so that's all about toxic, uh, basically plastic plants. And I gotta say, science uses a lot of single use plastics. Chemical plants also were using chemicals. So Cancer Alley, this is like an injustice of who lives by that area and their increased cancer rate. So that's on the website here. Present injustice is what's under here. My assistant actually put this together with my supervisor.
Mm.
But that's the one that's most chemistry related, I think. Here, funding. No, we talk about incorporating social justice into labs. Let's see if we put anything there. Space optimization. No, I think the Cancer Alley is the biggest one. Oh, it does have on one of them is Enviro Screen, so you can see. There's an environmental justice map. But yeah, I think the what I just told you though, like the Cancer Alley piece where they're doing single use plastic, and there were other factories there, but
Yeah.
chemical factories like that. Those people that are living near those factories, they are have increased cancer risk and increased incidences of cancer, and yet those are things that are being used in science, and they're coming from those plants. So that's injustice. And if we were to switch to greener chemistry rather than some of the things that maybe are being produced there, that really could help, reduce the injustices of the exposure that people are getting. But not only the people that are living there, like, for example, those that have to handle this hazardous waste.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
are they part of disadvantaged populations of people too? They're more likely to get those because those are jobs they can get. They're more likely to do that, so they're getting more exposure to the hazardous waste that's being generated. So yeah, green chemistry. There's actually some webinars on Beyond Benign about the intersection of green chemistry and environmental justice. They're kind of a little hard to find, but what are you interested in me sending? I definitely will send this.
Um,
You know,
I
this
think
flyer
the
and
flyer, and then maybe just the homepage of the like environmental, like Cancer Alley.
Okay,
website that you're
sure.
looking. And then I think
Yeah.
that would be a good amount of resources just for me to touch on, and then hopefully
Okay.
have a good presentation.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one thing that's happening at CU Boulder, and it's not official yet, but it's in its final stage, is that our campus is gonna is appears we're gonna sign the green chemistry commitment with Beyond Benign. So it's very exciting.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's
yeah.
about making sure that green chemistry over time gets integrated into the education.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
course is basically on chemistry, and our chemistry department's already been working on this for a while. I mean, but it's not to full integration, but we'd really like it. What's your major again? Oh, biomedical. I
Yeah.
wonder if you'll have to take some chemistry classes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to hopefully meet all my pre-med requirements too, so I know I'm gonna have to go to OChem and physics and all those, so I'm sure I'll get definitely touch on it again later.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, great. Well, yeah, and I will say, as an undergrad and a student, I tell this to the students: you have the freest voices on this campus, and you have a lot more influence than you realize to encourage more movement towards sustainability or green chemistry that you're working on here. Um, because this university does not exist without students, and you are paying to be here, and this is the education you're receiving, so your voice is very important in what you want to see for your education. So when students speak up and say, why aren't we doing more sustainability as part of my class that I'm doing, or why is there no sustainability incorporated in this, or why is my lab, that's great, my lab did include it, like, also pointing out that really meant a lot to me. I would just tell you right now that your voice is very important. And, and what I find is that students arrive here not realizing how powerful your voice is. So I hope. And then if you go on to graduate school, for example, one of the campaigns that we're going to try to start my program here is letting the undergraduates know that when you go and you're applying to different graduate schools, asking them, do you have a Green Labs program and is it permanently staffed? Because only about 10 universities out of all the universities across the nation have what we have here. And most people come here and they think, oh, I'm going to find this everywhere. That is not true. We are one campus that has a very established Green Labs program, and there are some others across the nation, but it's a rarity. It's not you should not assume that that exists. But your voice, again, is extremely powerful. If those graduate programs knew that you wanted to see sustainability in your research when you went on to grad school, they will say, oh, people are starting to notice that we don't have this. We need to step up and do it. And you can help influence change on more of a national level.
definitely, definitely. I'll keep that in mind. I know I still have like 4 years to go, but I mean, just going into CU
Yeah.
Boulder, that was definitely one of my because I really only applied to Colorado schools because I just love it here. But that was one
Hmm.
of the things that I noticed about CU Boulder was that they seem like the best of every world. Like in terms of the social aspect, like there's so many clubs, you can do anything, even the
Yeah.
ski club. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, you just can delve into science and just go as deep as you want. And so
Yeah.
that's what ultimately
Yeah.
made my decision.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. I mean, my daughters, I said, are your same age, but they're juniors, not seniors. And yeah, they're going to be looking at schools, and definitely they're including CU Boulder on their list. But they've known CU Boulder since they were little girls, coming into this center and rolling the chairs down the hallway to play while I was trying to work. And um, so yeah, they want to see what another university campus looks like, of course, at this point.
Yeah.
But I still hope that they might seriously consider it, because it's a really great school. And Colton, I really hope that when you get here, you'll come visit me
Of
in the
course,
environmental center. It'd be great to meet you in person.
agreed. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. And I got to tell you, I cannot believe that Seth replied to you. I guess I think it's wonderful he did. but he is such a he's like so high level and so busy. I like even his automatic message says, "I'm on a project and I don't have time to respond to messages right now." I'm sure you got that too. And I was like, "Wow!" Like I'm like really impressed. He like replied, and I think that's wonderful. I think that's so great, and I was so touched that he thought of me. I mean, that I definitely wanted to follow up with you because, gosh, to get something from Seth Martyr recommending me, that was like awesome for me too.
I was just as amazed. I was looking at his page as well, and he just had title after title after title, and I was
Oh, I
just
know.
like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
But it'll
yeah, and
definitely.
he's a wonderful person, but he's also like to the point. Don't waste my time. I got to get things done. Okay, see you later. You know, he's like,
I
because I'm
got
on a
that.
committee with him. I'm on a committee, and he's just like, okay, this had better be efficient use of my time and make sure it's well worth my time. You know, because and I don't blame him. He's trying to do so much, and he's really smart. Really, he's very intelligent, and what he says is right on in general. I mean, he's just like really, but yeah, he's to the point. He can be, he doesn't have time to waste. So yeah, if
Yeah.
you got that from him when you interviewed him, make sure to don't take anything personally. I think it's just amazing that he responded. So,
Well, I'm grateful 100%. It just
yeah.
it definitely will make my presentation all the better. So,
Great, great. Well, I'll send you some resources. It probably won't be till later tonight, but or tomorrow morning or something. But you still have time, right? When's your presentation?
my presentation is until my official one is until May 1st. So, plenty of
Oh, okay,
time.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Very good. Okay, well, take care, Colton. It was nice to meet you, and yeah, best of luck with finishing up your senior year. I hope graduation is just a ton of fun and a real celebration.
Thank you. You as well.
Yeah.
Have a nice night.
Okay, bye.
Bye.